welcome also members of the press. We concluded Culturama 44 just a little over 3 weeks ago, and so we decided that it would be necessary for us to come and report to the media what would have taken place during Culturama. One of the important issues that we want to lay on the table this morning is the financial statement, or a synopsis of the financials from Culturama 44. I know that the Nevis Island Administration wants everything to be very transparent, and so the Honorable Minister has decided this morning to call this press conference to update the press on what would have taken place during Culturama. So the Minister would make his presentation, and then at the end there's a microphone that is provided that you would come to and ask your questions. I would now turn the remainder of this press conference over to the Honorable Evelyn, Minister with responsibility for culture and Culturama in the Nevis Island Administration. Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liebert, and let me greet all of us who are here this morning. With the protocol established, let me just specially greet my cabinet colleagues, the Deputy Premier, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, and the Honorable Spencer Brand, and I would like to apologize for the absence of the Premier, the Honorable Mark Brandley, who would have loved to be here, but he's at Parliament in St. Kitts. And let me greet all of us who are here. It's indeed a pleasure to have you here this morning at this press conference. I would also like to greet those who are viewing via live stream, as well as those listening via Von Radio as well. And as would have been indicated by Mr. Liebert, this morning we are here specifically just to update and report to members of the general public with regards to our recently concluded Culturama Festival for 2018. And I would just like to begin by congratulating all of the winners for Culturama 2018. And I will just like to just go through the list of the winners and to personally congratulate all of the winners for Culturama 2018. For the Petrix Junior Calypso competition, we had the winner, Terran Webb, or the Invincible. First runner-up, Marquise Washington, or the Mighty J. And second runner-up, Shanti Hendrickson, Princess Nevea. The Mr. and Miss Talented Youth pageant winners, Mackenzie Arterton and Tishon Newton of the Charlestown Primary. First runners-up, Hadassah Daniel and Darren Josiah of the Ivor Walters Primary. And the second runners-up, Dequania Movin and Tamale Wilkinson of the St. Thomas's Primary School. The Miss Culture Swimwear and Mr. Cool. The Mr. Cool winners, Ranciato Jeffers, Mr. Flo. First runner-up, Jonah Valerie, Mr. NCDF. And second runner-up, Kwame Mayers, Mr. Nevis Tourism Authority. The Miss Culture Swimwear winner, Ramisha Malone, Miss Flo. First runner-up, Vinette Jones, Miss Fit Wellness. And the second runner-up, Avis Glasgow, Miss Solid Waste Management Authority. For the National Bank Soca Monarch competition, for the Groovy segment, winner Theron Jeffers, Speedy. First runner-up, Kenyatta Warner, Easy. And second runner-up, Delroy Huggins, Delhi Ranks. For the Power segment, winner Delroy Huggins, Delhi Ranks. First runner-up, Thyron Jeffers, Speedy. And the second runner-up, Algin Newton and Kezron Archibald, Etodan and Kezi. For the TDC Senior Calypso competition, the winner, Keith Scarborough, this and that. First runner-up, Oscar Brown, Astro. Second runner-up, Shamari Mitchell, Suki. The SL Hosford Miss Culture Queen Pageant, winner, Nelia Jones, Miss Carrie Brewery, St. Kitts Nevis Limited. And the first runner-up, Tiwana Cranston, Miss Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis. And for the Road March, we had Delhi Ranks with Push Forward. For the Cultural Street Parade, in the Fantasy Senior, winner, Preparing for the Storm. Second place, Royal Rampage, Savannah Rise of the Phoenix. Third place, Four Seasons, The Colors of Paradise. And for the Fantasy Junior, the winner, J.D. Keynes Badai. So I just want to once again congratulate the winners, and we want to say a special thanks to all of the participants who would have taken part in the festival this year. Of course, the success of the festival is always due to the participation, and so we really want to say a very big thank you to all of our participants. I would also at this point like to thank the Premier and my cabinet colleagues for all of the support. I want to especially thank the Premier for investing his confidence in me in placing this portfolio under my watch. That's the portfolio of culture. I would also like to say a very hearty thank you to the Culturama Committee, the Culturama Secretariat, and the NCDF. Of course, they would have been in charge of overall managing the festival. And I want to say a special thank you to Mr. Antonio Liebert, who was the chairman of the Culturama Committee and the executive director of the Culturama Secretariat, and the entire team at the Secretariat, the committee members, the NCDF, for, I think, a fantastic job. Very well done, very well executed, and we want to say a hearty thank you to them. We also want to congratulate and say thanks again to our patron for 2018, Mr. Clefrin Shine Daniel. And I must say here that sometimes we have a patron for the festival, and sometimes we do not see the patron very often. But I must say that I think I saw Shine at practically all of the activities. And that is what we normally love to see in a patron, that the patron is out to support all of the activities. And I can safely say that Shine was an outstanding patron for Culturama 2018. And of course, we would have had here Mr. Arthur France, who would have been our parade grand marshal, he and his family visiting from England. He would have officially declared the festival open on the 26th of July and was the grand marshal for the parade. We want to say thanks to him and his family for gracing us with his presence as well. And of course, we had our slogan winner. Congratulations once again to Mr. Naya Daniel, who submitted the winning slogan, Fet Food Folklore Culturama 44. And of course, to the numerous persons who would have submitted slogans for 2018, we say thank you to you, and we hope that you're already getting your pen to paper to submit your slogans for Culturama 45. I also want to say a special thank you to Superintendent Lyndon David and his team of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Of course, you'll hear a little later on that our Culturama this year was accident and incident free, and in huge part due to the police force. So we want to say a very big thank you to them for their presence overall and for ensuring that everything was kept decent and in order, accident and incident free. Of course, we would have had great promotion for our festival, and all of the members of the press who are here and who are not here would have done an outstanding job in promoting our festival for 2018, and we are very grateful for the support that you have shown and that you'll continue to show. And of course, we're expecting that overwhelming support again for our 45th edition of Culturama come 2019. Of course, our sponsors are a huge part of the festival, and we have some sponsors who have been with us for a very, very long time. Every year we have new sponsors coming on board, and we want to thank our sponsors, our platinum sponsor Flo, and a big thank you as well to our title sponsors, P-Chicks for the Junior Calypso Competition, SL Hosfords for the Miss Culture, TDC for the Senior Calypso Competition, and National Bank, who came on board as a title sponsor for the first time this year to sponsor the Soca Monarch competition. And of course, we have title sponsors for a number of our shows and our pageants, but we are also seeking title sponsors for the other pageants or the other shows that we do not have title sponsors. So I speak of the Mr. and Miss Talented Youth Pageant, as well as the Miss Culture, Swimwear, and Mr. Cool. So if there are any business places or persons who are out there listening or viewing who would like to come on board as a title sponsor, we would certainly welcome you with open arms. And of course, we want to thank the sponsors of the contestants for the various pageants, and generally all of the sponsors for your very generous support and assistance. When I was at the prize giving about a week ago, I was pleasantly surprised to see so many sponsors that we had for the prizes for our various pageants. And so we want to say a very happy thank you to all who came on board as sponsors for this year. And of course, we would be looking for your usual support and your sponsorship again in 2019. I threw out a challenge when I spoke at the official launch of the festival on Thursday, the 26th of July, right here at the Cultural Village. And I'm going to throw that challenge out again. That next year is our 45th edition of the festival. And so I am asking sponsors and sponsors who may be coming on board that you can start thinking of starting your sponsorship at $45,000 and going upwards. Since next year is our 45th, you can start at $45,000 and go up. But if you cannot do that, whatever you are prepared to give in sponsorship, we'll be extremely happy to receive. And I also want to thank, normally they are left out, but I want to thank our auditors. I understand that we have a team of auditors who have been with us for quite some time, and they're very faithful, and we want to thank our auditors. And while I speak of the auditors as well, we cannot forget our IT department. And of course, we know that we have an electronic scoring system now. The IT department is responsible for managing that system. And because of the fact that we have that system, we are able to get our decisions on a much more timely basis. And I know I've heard comments this year that persons were generally pleased with how quickly the decisions came. We know in the past sometimes we waited for half an hour, 45 minutes before we got a decision. And of course, part of the fact why we are getting our decisions so quickly is because of that electronic scoring system that we have. And of course, as I said, managed by the IT department. I would also like to thank our partners, because Culturama is a festival. Of course, it's run by a government department, and it's a government function, but we cannot do it alone. And over the years, we've been having a number of partners who have been partnering with the festival committee to stage different activities. And over the years, we have seen the partners grow. We've seen the partners increase, and we are very happy and grateful for the partnership that we have developed over the years with these partners. And so we want to thank the partners for organizing some of the activities for Culturama. And I speak of the organizers of the Nevis Mango Festival, Musical Cornucopia, the Tim Kaines and Associate Culturama Games, Friction Friday, 4-in-1 Fete, Glow Fete, Aquatic Extravaganza, Poker Run, Premiers 11 versus SK and Patriots Exhibition Cricket Match, Caribbean Calypso King and Queen Contest, Rhythms Dance Theatre Production, Alcohol on Trial, Breakfast Fete, Fruit Festival, Homecoming Night and Herbert Beach Affair, Drag Racing, Floor Miss Caribbean Culture Queen Pageant. And I specifically decided to outline all of these activities just to indicate how important our partners are to the festival. You would realize that there were a number of activities that were not organized by the Central Committee. And we are grateful for the support that these partners bring to the table, and of course, what they add to the festival. And so we are grateful and thankful to the partners, and we would look forward to that partnership again. I know this year our program was extremely packed, and with next year being our 45th, a signal year, a milestone year, we are expecting the program to be even more packed. And so we're expecting all of these partners to be back, and I'm sure and I'm certain that more partners will be coming on board for the 2019 festival. And of course, we are grateful for the support of members of the general public here on Nevis, and of course from our sister island St. Kitts, those who would have visited, those nationals and residents who would have come back. We are so grateful for the overwhelming support that we had for our festival. Now that I've said thanks to our winners and congratulated the winners and said thanks to our partners and thanks to all our stakeholders who would have made the festival the success it was, I would just like to briefly speak about my experience per se as the new Minister of Culture. And I would say that overall it was a very wonderful experience. Of course, challenging sometimes, and with all experiences there will be the ups and there will be downs, there will be the lows and there will be highs. But overall I would say that I had a rewarding experience. The experience was excellent, working with Mr. Liebert and the Culturama committee and all who worked along to ensure that we had a good festival. And I would also like to just highlight what I believe was some of the high points of the festival. Prior to the festival, of course, I would have said on numerous occasions that I believe that this year's staging of the festival will be one of the best ever, if not the best ever, and would exceed expectations and would exceed our staging from last year. I am still of that view that it was. That is, of course, my opinion. And, of course, everybody would have their own opinion. But I still believe that the festival that we had this year exceeded the festival from last year in many ways. And as I said, that is debatable. But I think that from my experience, the festival exceeded my expectations. And I'm grateful that I think all of the expectations, if not almost, were met, and in some cases exceeded. And so some of the highs that I think we had from our festival this year, of course our festival, it's not my festival, and I think this year the promotion was excellent. We had the promotion, all of the media houses on social media. I think all of the media houses and so on went out of their way to ensure that all of our activities were very well promoted. And I personally am very pleased with the promotion that we had for this year, and I'm expecting, of course, even better things for Culturama 45. I was particularly pleased with the coverage of the events for this year. And the coverage of the events this year is still being talked about in many circles. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis and abroad, we have been getting some excellent, and when I say excellent, real excellent reviews in terms of our coverage of the events, and in particular, the live streaming this year. I think the live streaming went over exceptionally well. From all reports, the quality of the streaming was great, and the persons in the diaspora in particular were very pleased that they were able to view firsthand practically all of the shows, and they were almost like they were present at the activities on the island of Nevis. I could recall that on one particular night, that was on the night of Miss Culture, the live streaming went down for a while, and I was getting calls and WhatsApp messages from New York. What is happening with the live stream? Because people had gotten so accustomed to the live stream and logging on and, paying attention to what's happening on the island of Nevis that people missed it when it was not there. And I would specifically like to say a very hearty thank you to and congratulate Miss Judith Descent and the entire team at NTV. And I would specifically single out Mr. Stuart Jeffers and Kerry Williams and John James, our partner, who were responsible for the live stream. But I would really like to thank the entire team at NTV for doing what I would say a really outstanding job. And while I speak of NTV as well, of course we would have realized that we had some excellent promos running prior to the festival and during the festival as well. And I think most of those promos were done by Kerry, and I think the quality was really, really exceptional. And while we talk about promotion and coverage as well, we would have had a team here from Barbados, we would have had a team here from St. Andrews Island, and we really want to thank those overseas-based teams for coming and assisting with our coverage, and they will be doing more promotion for our festival for next year. In terms of our highs as well, of course this year we would have had some additional events that were not on the calendar of activities for last year. We had the 4-in-1 fete, first of its kind. We had the breakfast fete. We had the Culturama games. We had the return of the Junior Cultural Street Parade, which has been absent for a very, very long time. And in terms of highs as well, of course, we would have had the enhancements done at the cultural complex. The Nevis Island Administration, through the Ministry of Culture, would have spent over $500,000 in terms of work at the cultural complex, and the reviews have been good. We wanted to ensure that our participants and our patrons were very comfortable once they attended the festival or the pageants at the cultural complex. And so I think that was one of our highs as well. Normally, when we have a festival, one of the first questions person would ask, will there be an increase in the fees, admission fees? And of course, there were none this year. So I think that could be considered as a high point as well for our festival. And of course, we would have had increased participation. We would have had increased participation in the Junior Calypso competition. We had 14 Junior Calypsonians this year, up from 10 the previous year. And the interest seems to be so good for the Junior Calypso competition. And I must say here as well that the quality was excellent too. And there is even the talk now that we might have to start thinking of having an elimination for Junior Calypso competition. We don't know, but we'll have to see how that goes for the 45th anniversary. We would have had increased participation for the Senior Calypso competition as well, and we would have had increased competition for the Parade of Troops. In terms of our highs as well, I think generally the attendance was pretty good. Could have been better for some of the activities, and of course when I give you the financial statement, you would realize that we had the attendance going up for some shows and the attendance down for some of the shows. But generally, the attendance was quite good for this year, and as I would have said earlier, we are very fortunate in again staging an accident and incident-free Culturama Festival, and once again I really want to say a hearty thank you to the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force for the support that you would have provided to ensure that we had an accident and incident-free Culturama. I would have spoken about our number and the variety of activities that we had this year. I know questions have been asked as to why you have so many activities in one night, but of course it's good to provide options, and of course persons will normally go towards the show or the activity that they prefer. But it's always good to have options. At least people can not say, well, I am bored this evening, I have nowhere to go. If there are 3 activities, you must be interested in at least one of them. And so we had a great number and great variety of activities. As will be presented later on, we would have had an increase, general increase in our gate receipts for 2018. For some of the shows, the gate receipts were up significantly. And a few of the shows, the gate receipts were up, but overall, we had an increase in the gate receipts. And of course, for the launch of our Culturama this year, for the very first time, we would have actually launched the slogan competition for next year. I don't think that has ever been done in the past. We are intent on having our Culturama 45th edition being the best ever. And therefore the promotion and everything else, the preparation must start early. We are intent on starting early, and that is why we would have launched the slogan competition on the 26th of July 2018. And as a matter of fact, on that same evening when it was launched, slogans began to come in. And I would just like to remind persons who are out there, who are putting pen to paper, who are thinking of submitting slogans this year, that you can submit your slogans to slogan@culturamanevis.com. Only I think this past weekend someone did ask for the email address to send the slogans to, and therefore the interest is still there and persons are still sending in their slogans. And so we would expect that this year we would get the greatest number of slogans ever. And I believe that the committee members who will be responsible for selecting the slogan will have a very difficult time this year. And so those I would consider some of our high points for the festival. Of course, there's always room for improvement. Nothing is perfect. And we would have had some lows as well. The late start of our shows, that is a perennial problem, which we still have to work on. I would have, when I spoke to the committee earlier this year, when I met with them, I did mention that as one of the issues that I would like them to address, and I would sound the alarm here and now, early o'clock, that we would want to improve dramatically on this aspect of the festival in 2019. And so we are hopeful that for next year, at least we would have an improvement in terms of the start of our shows. I know sometimes organizers or subcommittee members would tend to say, well, a lot of persons are not in the complex, so we will wait until persons come in. I would say that once you want people to come early, you must endeavor to start the show early. If people know that the show is going to start on time, they will get there on time. And of course, if people get there late and they miss a part of the show, it's their fault. So we're going to endeavor for next year to make an effort to try to start earlier. I spoke to the committee members as well at our post-mortem, and I would have spoken as well about the length of some of the shows. I still believe some of the shows are a little lengthy. The management need to step up. We need to have some of the shows a little tighter, and I still believe that we can do better where that is concerned. I personally still don't believe that we should be in the cultural complex at 2 o'clock in the morning for any show whatsoever. So I'm hoping that for next year we could have an improvement in terms of the management of the shows, the stage management of the shows. We would have tighter shows and persons could be out of the complex a little earlier. And of course, every year we have our rain interruptions. That's something natural. That's something we don't have any control over. And of course, one of our major lows this year was the Calypso debacle, the situation with the Senior Calypso Monarch competition. I would not say much about that, just to say that it was an embarrassment to me as the minister. I'm sure it was an embarrassment to the administration and to us as divisions as well. And I will say here and now that a situation like that will never happen again under my watch. So with that said, I will now like to just turn to the financial statement. And today we table a preliminary financial statement of aspects of some of the receipts and the payments of 2018 Culturama Festival. And we will begin with the receipts derived from ticket sales and the gate receipts, which total this year $210,079. And it is an increase of 18% over the previous year. And it is broken down as follows. The receipts from Calypso-related activities, which of course that is the Calypso finals, the semi-finals, the quarterfinals, the tent, $31,648. The receipts from the Miss Culture show, $21,180. The receipts from the Soca Monarch shows, which includes the semi-finals and the finals, $21,360. From the Miss Swimwear and Mr. Cool, $27,170. And the Talented Youth receipts, $22,070. The Wet Fit ticket sales, $85,650. As indicated from the figures above, the Wet Fit activity is the largest contributory event to the earnings for the festival, and it actually represents 41% of the total gate receipts and ticket sales. It is also noteworthy that there is a 95% increase over last year's earnings from the Wet Fit. And I'm sure persons would like to know in terms of comparisons as well for last year and this year. And if I could just give a quick comparison as well for last year and this year. For the Calypso finals, we had the receipts for the Calypso finals this year, $24,030. Last year it was $25,836, and it was a loss, a difference. We went down by $1,806, which is a 7% decrease. For the Miss Culture, for this year the receipts were $22,180. Last year it was $36,418, a difference of $14,238, so there was a drop of 39%. For the Soca Monarch finals, this year $18,960, last year $12,667, a 50% increase we went up by 6,293. For the swimwear and the Mr. Cool, this year the gate receipts 27,170 as opposed to 10,808 last year, an increase of 151%, or an increase of 16,362. For the talented youth, we had, for this year, we had $22,070, an increase from last year, which was 15,798, a 40% increase, or 6,272. And for the wet fet, last year the gate receipts were 43,879. This year, 85,650, an increase of 95%, or 41,771. And so our total gate receipts this year, as I would have mentioned, 210,079, as opposed to last year, 178,014, an 18% increase, or an increase of 32,006. Now turning to the revenue from booth rentals and vending activities, which total $36,800, and it is a reduction of 9%, or 3,425 over last year, broken down as follows. Complex booths, 6,750. The complex stalls, 3,350. The cultural village booths, 16,250. The food fair, craft vending, 525. Food fair, food and drink, 5,425. Street vending, Juve and parade, 4,500. There was a 40% increase in the cultural village booths, in keeping with the increase in rental rate announced by the Ministry of Culture earlier this year. There was a reduction of the number of booths allocated at the annual food fair, which was implemented as a control mechanism, and thus there was a decrease of 8,425, or 61% decrease. And the revenue side, we turn to the sponsorship for monetary value only. The initial NIA subvention was $300,000. That remained the same from last year, and we are hopeful that it will go up significantly for 2019, as it is our 45th. Other sponsorship contributions, we had flow contribution of $80,000 cash, and that remained the same from last year. And other sponsorship contributions showed an approximate 12% interim increase. I'm hopeful for next year we could have a 45% increase from sponsorship, or even higher. And now turning to payments, and our focus will be on the prize giving ceremony only. This aspect of the festival shows an approximate 3% increase, or $8,450 in prize money over the corresponding period, and a total of $256,000 was paid out in prize money. And it goes as follows. The Senior Calypso competition, $83,250. Junior Calypso, $16,000. Cultural Street Parade, $16,500. Miss Swimwear and the Mr. Cool, $32,000. The Miss Culture Pageant, $33,000. The Road March, $2,000. Soca Monarch, $57,250. Talented Youth, $16,000. Now, the Senior Calypso show showed a 6%, or $4,750 increase in prize giving over the previous period. This increase was as a result of a quarterfinals this year as opposed to last year. The quarterfinalist prize money amounts to $3,750. We also had the introduction of the Best Witty Song, an additional early release over last year, and they were $500 value each. And of course, as I would have said this year, the general participation was up in terms of the Calypsonians. The Cultural Street Parade showed a fall off of $7,750 in prize money over last year. The participation level increased over the previous period but with greater emphasis on fantasy. There was eminent display throughout the festival on folklore, in keeping with the slogan. However, on parade day, the folklore aspect was not as prominent. And of course, the Junior Street Parade was displayed separately on Friday, 3rd August, with a return display on parade day. And I must say here as well that for the fantasy category, most of the folklore, for the masquerades and so on, those were not judged, but they were given monetary donations. I would have spoken about last year's last year, the Mr. Cool show was absent, and it came back this year. And its return with the Miss Culture Swimwear showed an obvious collection increase, which I would have mentioned earlier, which amounted to $21,000. The Miss Culture prize show money, there was a reduction of $5,000 over 2017. And of course, that is in keeping with the fact that there were 4 contestants this year, as opposed to 5 last year. The Soca Monarch contest, it continues to make massive strides and was one of the highlights of this year's festival, both in terms of the participation and the quality of the contest. And of course, that was showed in the increase of 6% in terms of our gate receipts. The Talented Youth Show had a decrease in prize money as well over 2017, of course, because we had decreased in the participation this year. So that in a nutshell is what we had in terms of our financial, what we want to report for this year, in terms of our gate receipts, in terms of our prize money. And of course, the figures are there for members of the public to scrutinize. But I want to say that I am happy that we would have generally had an increase in terms of our gate receipts. And we are looking forward to even higher gate receipts next year. Now that I've tabled the financial statement, just very briefly, as I'm going to wrap up now, in terms of looking towards Culturama 45, I would have spoken, of course, about our early start to promotions this year. We have to start early, we have to intensify, and our promotion must leave no stone unturned to bring the crowds out for next year, to bring visitors to our shores, to bring our nationals back to Nevis. I want maybe we can have next year as another homecoming event as our 45th. We will have the early selection of the slogan winner, because of course the promotion must start early and we must have our slogan early. We will start early in terms of our registration of contestants. I believe at least by sometime September. Actually, I've been told now that September 1st we actually started with the registration of the contestants for next year. Extremely early start. We're getting out of the blocks very early. We mean business for Culturama 45. We would have promised as well at the launch of Culturama 44 that we would have the Culturama 45 logo ready. I must say that the draft is out. I don't think it's totally ready yet, but the draft has been circulated to the committee, and I'm hopeful that the logo will be finalized very shortly, and when we have our promotion, we will have our Culturama 45 logo. I would just like to take this opportunity to encourage our nationals here as well as abroad, nationals and residents and those from abroad. I'm encouraging you to participate in the festival this year, and a special call to our nationals abroad to ensure that you are here. You don't want to be left behind for Culturama 45. You want to experience what promises to be an exhilarating affair for Culturama 45. And of course, I would encourage very early preparation for our contestants. We did indicate that the registration is already open, so persons who are interested in taking part in any of the pageants, any of the contests for next year, registration is open very early, and you're asked to register early, and we're asking you to prepare early, because we want all of our pageants, shows, and competitions next year to be of a very, very high standard. And of course, we are also promising to have more enhancements to our cultural complex as we get ready for Culturama 45. So I would just once again want to thank all of you for your presence here this morning. I have reported on what I think I should report on for the Culturama Festival. Once again, I would like to say that I personally, as the minister, am very pleased with the way the activity or the festival unfolded, and I do look forward to an even better activity for Culturama 45. Thank you very much.
Okay, I would like to thank the Minister, the Honorable Evelyn, for a very comprehensive review of Culturama 44. Now the floor is open for members of the press or any other person present to any other members of the press to ask questions. The microphone is up front, and so we would like to have some interaction from those here, the members of the press and other persons. So who is ready to lead off?
A pleasant good morning to one and all, Minister Evelyn, Chairman Liebert, and to all those present here, and to the general public. Marvin Ross, Van Radio. I have two questions. What is the policy for payment to persons who the committee does business with? And is there a preference to pay locals last? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Marvin Ross. And that was a very broad question. What is the policy for payment? The policy for payment is that we pay all of our vendors. We will pay all. I have to say that our participants, we would have decided that our winners would have taken preference, and so we would have endeavored to ensure that all of our winners were paid at the prize giving, which was just over a week ago. And so all of the prize monies have been paid. We are still receiving bills and invoices from some of our vendors. The vendors, all of them will be paid in due course. And of course, as the Minister of Finance always say, we pay according to how the money rolls, right? So we will pay all of our vendors, and there is no preference to pay local vendors last, as you may have suggested. But the policy is that all of our vendors will be paid. We ensure that we paid our winners first, and over time, the other vendors will be paid as the invoices continue to come in. And we're going to be trying to pay them in a very timely manner.
Good morning, Minister Evelyn.
Good morning.
My name is Bjorn Hanley. And you wouldn't believe I was outside waiting for quite some time. I thought the press conference was going to be on the stage. So I was out there waiting for about 20 minutes. And then I said, well, this looks like a room behind here, so let me just come behind here. And here we are now. So I have three short questions for you today, sir. Question number one, Calypso Show. We know we had some judging fiasco with the Calypso Show. Can you explain to us exactly what happened there, and what system the ministry is putting in place to ensure that doesn't happen again? That's question number one. And question number two, Queen Show. I noticed at the Queen Show, I don't know if a segment was missing, but in my view, I think a segment was missing. I think was the swimwear. Can you explain to us what happened there, if that's the new policy, or what happened there at the Queen Show? And question number three, Culturama Committee. How do you join such a prestigious organization as the Culturama Committee? And obviously, we take Culturama very seriously because we have a committee, a Culturama Committee. And I always find it fascinating that we have a Culturama Committee, but we don't have We don't have an education committee, we don't have a healthcare committee, we don't have a crime committee, but we have a Culturama committee. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I think, by and large, in my view, Culturama was a success. And maybe it's a well-organized event every year. To me, it's one of the best organized ministries in government, in my view. Maybe that's because of the committee and the structure we have in place there. So I also like in Culturama, I like the live streaming as well. That was a good initiative. And Minister Evelyn, I know this is your first time being a Minister of Culture and first time Minister as well. So I'm going to stay there with those 3 short questions for you right now. And what do we have in place for next year? Is it going to be different or is it going to be more of the same? Culturama 45. So can you let us know what we'll have in place for next year? And that's it for now, sir. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we do apologize that you were outside for a while. But in terms of the Calypso show, you mentioned that there was a judging fiasco. I would not call it a judging fiasco. There were some mistakes that were made unintentionally, but I would not call it a judging fiasco. After the judging was done for the semi-finals, there were some persons who decided to challenge, and as I said, some mistakes were made, and we apologize for the mistakes that were made, but they have already been made. But I would not term it as a judging fiasco per se. The judging was done. We had our judges for all of the different segments, for the quarterfinals and semifinals and the finals. The judges were selected. The judges did what they had to do based on the instructions they were given. And so I would not term it as a judging fiasco. But we did have a situation, and if you were not here earlier, but I did say we had a situation which is an embarrassing situation, and I will ensure that something like that will never happen again. But as I said, I wouldn't really term it as a judging fiasco. It may have been a fiasco, but not a judging one. All right. In terms of the Queen show, you mentioned that you thought a segment was missing. The Queen show has been evolving over the years. And for those of us who are older like me would know that when Miss Culture show started, there was no swimsuit segment. There was one that was introduced some time back, and there have been years when it was dropped as well. And for whatever reason, the subcommittee decided to drop that segment this year. So I am not sure whether or not we are still in discussion, because when we had our post-mortem meeting, that was discussed. There are some persons who feel that the swimwear segment should come back, and there are some persons who feel that the swimwear segment should be left out permanently. Of course, we know that there is a separate swimwear competition. And so since we already have a Miss Culture swimwear, some people still believe that the swimwear is not necessary, totally necessary for the Miss Culture Queen pageant. When the Miss Culture Queen pageant started many years ago, and as I said, it has evolved, because of course we know that it was specifically to promote culture, and for the contestants, they wore African prints and that sort of thing. But it has evolved, and the swimwear was introduced. We are still not certain whether or not we will bring it back next year, because of course we also have to bear in mind that the winner of the Miss Culture, once she goes overseas to represent in any show, she will have to wear a swimwear. And the winner of that show already knows that if she's going overseas, she will have to wear swimwear. But as I said, the debate is on. It's debatable as to whether or not that particular segment is absolutely necessary. So that is why the segment was dropped this year. And of course, most of us would know as well that we had a pretty late start to preparation for Miss Culture. We had some challenges in terms of getting contestants, and we had a late start. And so that particular segment was dropped this year. In terms of the Culturama Committee and how you can join the Culturama Committee, and I want to thank you for your commendation and for your good words. The Culturama committee, it's a committee that persons serve voluntarily. And in terms of how the committee members are selected, of course we have a central committee, and you have members on that committee who are responsible for the various pageants and competitions. I guess in the past what may have been done is that the Culturama Secretariat may have looked at persons in the community who may be good persons at leading a particular event. For example, if you're looking for someone to lead a to be the Miss Culture swimwear, the Miss Culture committee chair, you would possibly look at someone who has some experience in pageantry, someone who may have been who have entered the show before, someone who may have been a winner, you know. And so that is some of the things that you look at when you're trying to select persons to be a part of the. Apart from that, there are persons in the community who actually come forward and volunteer and said, I think I have a contribution to make. I think I have the necessary management skills to be a part of the committee. I would like to come and be a part. I know that during the Culturama, there's one particular person who has already come forward and said, I want to be a part of the committee next year to assist in management of the Mr. Cool. And the person has said it to me several times. So persons have come forward in the past who are interested, but I have to warn you that it is a lot of work, and it is voluntary work. You're not being paid for it. So it's not everybody who would be interested in doing all of this work. Culturama is a lot of headache behind the scenes, trust me. And so it's not everybody who can take the stress of being a part of a committee. But as I said, people have been selected in the past, and people have come forward voluntarily to be a part of the committee. And in terms of what is in place for next year, of course, next year will not be the same, all same. I did mention earlier in terms of what I'm looking forward to. Unfortunately, you were outside, but in terms of what we're looking forward to for next year, we have started our promotions early. The competition, the registration is already open for the various contests. We are out of the blocks early with our slogan competition. And of course, all of our promotion will be early this year. People complain that the program was a little bit too packed this year. Well, I can promise you that it will be even more packed next year. I've already had a conversation with the drama committee, and they're saying that they want to do a drama festival as a part of the Culturama next year, which probably might be a prelude to the festival. And so persons are already coming forward and saying, well, I want to do something for next year. So I can assure you, as Ken would say, that next year will not be the same. It will be a Culturama with a difference, and it will be the best ever staged on Nevis.
Yes, Minister Evelyn, in relation to Culturama, is the committee going to remain the same? Well, I know you just mentioned that somebody already came forward, but other than that individual, does the ministry, or is the committee, as I asked, going to remain the same? I know in the past we've had different chairs to the committee, so is it going to be different? Is the committee going to be different for Culturama 45?
Well, thank you, Marvin. That decision has not been made as yet in terms of whether or not we're going to have some new blood on the committee, whether or not some persons would believe, because there are some persons who actually, once they serve, they decide they don't want to serve again. And I know there's one individual who has already said that he's not interested in serving again for next year. So we will definitely have some new faces on the committee for next year.
Good morning to everybody and to our listeners. My name is Hansel Manners, and I'm here on my own behalf. First, I would like to congratulate you, Mr. Minister, and the chairman of the committee and all the winners and all of those who participated in Culturama for what was a good Culturama. I would like to focus my question on one particular event, and that is the street parade. I have noted that over the last few years, there has been a trend towards what you may be described as fantasy troops. That is the pretty feathers, pretty clothing, scantily clad people. That's the way I describe it. There are several people who have commented that they see no particular merit in this type of troupe. Every carnival in the area has this type of troupe, and Nevis appears to be going the same way. And the folklore troupes are hardly ever produced. My comment is that, and this is my personal opinion, I don't find the fantasy troupes appealing. I prefer to see something cultural. I note that the troupe that won did something about preparing for storms. It was good that they won because they said something. Most of the other troops with pretty feathers and scanty clothing were saying absolutely nothing. So my question to you is the fantasy troupe model the way of the future? And what do you see as the merit of these fantasy troupes, people scantily clad, along with the vulgarity that goes with it?
Thank you very much, Mr. Manners. Very interesting question indeed. And of course, I did say earlier that Culturama is evolving, and I know that there is the debate practically every year in terms of the merit of the fantasy troupes as opposed to the folklore troupes. And of course, we have to try as much as possible to broaden our minds, and we have to cater to all of the persons who want to be a part of Culturama, who want to visit Nevis for Culturama. We also have to bear in mind that we are competing with several other festivals during the same time. We have the carnival in Antigua. I think there's a carnival in Barbados, the crop over in Barbados. We have Caribana in Canada, and we also have the festival in Anguilla as well, and in Grenada. And so we are competing, and we want as many persons as possible to visit our shores. Of course, Culturama would have started way back with a focus on culture and folklore. And of course, if you realize that our slogan this year said, "Fet, Food and Folklore, Culturama 44." And so we as a committee, we wanted to have a lot more emphasis on folklore. Unfortunately, we did not have, and as I said it in my statement, we did not have a lot of folklore troupes this year, unfortunately. And so, Mr. Manners, the thing is, if we want to have a parade on Parade Day that will attract people, if we want to have a parade on Parade Day that will attract greater participation, even though you as a person would say you are not moved or attracted to the fantasy, there were several other persons who loved the fantasy. So we have to try as much as possible to cater to all. And even though Culturama did not start off with fantasy, a lot of our revelers and people who want to take part, and as I mentioned earlier, Culturama is about participation. And if we are going to exclude the fantasy, we're going to be excluding the greater number of persons who wish to participate in the festival. And so we have to ensure that we are all inclusive, and we want to include persons who wish to be a part of the festival and persons who wish to take part in the troops. And if we tend at this point to exclude the fantasy, as I said, we're going to be excluding the greater number of persons who wish to take part, who wish to revel, because I'm sure you realize that the fantasy troops, in terms of numbers, had a lot more than our folklore troops. I am saying that we definitely have to promote our folklore. We want to see more folklore. I would have said that to the NCDF in terms of their program in the schools, and definitely we would like to see more folklore on the streets. But if the greater number of persons who wish to be a part of the festival want to gravitate towards the fantasy, we don't have any control over that. And I must also say as well, because this is something that has been generating a lot of discussion as well in terms of the way people behave on the streets for parade day. We want people to come out, participate, and have a good time. And we, as the committee, I as the minister, have absolutely no control over persons once they get on the streets. We can encourage persons to behave in a particular way, but once they get on the streets for parade day, we have absolutely no control over them. So, Mr. Manners, in terms of the fantasy, I know you're someone who is a folklore preservationist and someone who is very dear. Culture is at your heart, but we certainly cannot turn away the fantasy persons who wish to be a part of the festival. As I said, Culturama is evolving, and we must continue to ensure that we can compete with the other festivals that are out there during the same time.
Could I just add two things? Could I clarify something? When I said folklore, I wasn't referring to masquerades, bulls, and giant despair, that kind of folklore. I was referring to having troops portray something, like the troop that won. I wouldn't say that was a folklore troop. It is a troop that said something, preparing for the storm, and they were able to dance just as much, but they left a message, as opposed to people who simply put on pretty feathers and dance. And to lots of people, there's no appeal in that. The second thing I wanted to, you mentioned that Nevis Culturama needs to compete, and you suggest that the way to compete is to do what everybody else is doing. Could I suggest, it's not a question, could I suggest that maybe the way to compete is to do something different? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manners, but I did not say the way to compete is to do what everybody else is doing either. So I did not say that.
I think you suggested that we needed to, since the carnivals in St. Kitts and Antigua and Barbados have fantasy troops, that we need to follow suit. That was a clear suggestion.
Well, thank you very much, but I also indicated as well that we cannot exclude our Nevisians and residents who want to take part in the festival as well, and who would wish to be a part of a fantasy troupe. But I do take your comments, Mr. Manners. I know they are given in very good faith, and I know that you would love to see a lot less of the fantasy and more of the folklore, as you suggest, a troupe that sends a message. And as you said again, you said there were a lot of people that the fantasy troupe is not appealing to. But I can tell you there are a lot of people who the fantasy troops are appealing to as well. So you have to weigh the balance. You have to strike a balance. So if the folklore is attracting a lot of people, we have the folklore. And if the fantasy is attracting a lot of people, we have both. And so you have both.
Okay.
I have another question. Over the years, we have had an issue in seeing the late start of the cultural street parade. Does the committee have anything that they will put in place for next year? Maybe bring up the start time for the cultural street parade. So let's say, for some reason, we have it, as I have it here, to reach an hour late, to start an hour late. So let's just say we decide we start at 12. And knowing individuals here and the way we operate, it has become part of our livelihoods. We're going to be an hour late, 2 hours late. So we start about 1 or 2 o'clock, because the last lap jump up, that's another vital part of that last day of the cultural activities, and persons look forward to that. But, you know, we have a cutoff time, and some individuals over the years have complained, saying that, you know, that cutoff time is too short. So does the committee think that maybe if they bring up the start time for the cultural street parade, the judging is done earlier, individuals get a longer time to, you know, have their fun, to fet? But over the years, the parade we've seen a late start. How do you plan to remedy this for Culturama 45?
Thank you. Well, of course, I did mention one of the laws for Culturama was the late start of shows. And I didn't mention the parade, but it included everything for Culturama, included the parade. So I am concerned that the parade normally starts late as well. And as I said, that is included in terms of the shows as well. I am concerned about the late start. And so if I said I'm concerned about the late start of the shows, I'm also concerned about the late start of the parade. And so the committee, as I said, I know the committee chair, the subcommittee chair for the parade, he really made an effort this year to get the parade started on time. There was some challenges, and as I would have mentioned earlier, I think, you know, persons who are not close to being a part of the organizing for Culturama, you have absolutely no clue and no idea as to the challenges that you normally have on parade day or the night of a show, right? So sometimes you have everything in place and something props up, and sometimes there are things that you don't plan for. But we will endeavor to start the shows earlier and to start the parade early as well for next year.
Are there any other questions? If not, I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and everyone for turning out this morning to this press conference to hear a report from the Honorable Minister that has responsibility for Culturama. He would have tabled the financials for Culturama 44 thus far, and I'm sure that the press, the persons watching, the persons viewing this live stream would admit that under the leadership of the Honorable Evelyn, that the Culturama Committee is making a greater effort to be transparent and to report to the members of the general public and the media. And so with those few words, again, I would like to say thank you, and to assure you, because you know, assure you has become a very popular word, term in Nevis now, especially for Culturama. I can assure you that we will be back with other press conferences leading up to Culturama 45. I know that we are already in discussion with regards to holding some town hall meetings to get some input from the members of the general public. So when we are at that juncture, I would be looking forward to the support of the media and all of the persons who would have been present here this morning. So once again, thank you.
Shamar Springer, he's gone a long way back, and Shamsi knew he'd got his man. Different celebration now. It's not often that Mohamed Nabi gets smoked for a big six like that, and a nice deft touch this time, and that should have enough on it. Does it? Oh, I think so. I think that's gone. Hilvenhouse, the fielder, 14 gone, 95 for 5. It's the 100 up for the Barbados Tridents. It's come in the 15th over.